You're on the board of directors with Hockey Nova Scotia. Those meetings, what's your demeanor? What's your goal to get across on being a board of Nova Scotia?
Well, to be honest, my demeanor nowadays is different than my demeanor when I began with the board of directors. And to be open and honest with you, when we first started work on the task force, which was struck by Hockey Nova Scotia after incidents of racism in Nova Scotia in the game, I was asked to chair the task force. And we brought together a diverse group of individuals from across the province, members of Indigenous communities within the province, members of the African Nova Scotian communities, members of the LGBTQ plus community, and persons with disabilities formed the task force. So we went out and we asked the important questions, not to those who are currently excelling in the game. We wanted to know what are the answers and what are the solutions from those individuals who tried the game but left the game because they didn't feel comfortable, never tried the game in the first place, and the like. So we examined and we reached out in a public consultation cross province, and we heard nearly 1,000 recommendations coming back our way of how to improve the game.
Just like emails?
We received, it was a formal survey that went out. It was an innovative digital survey that went out across the province, and we asked those communities to respond. And they responded with over 1,000 recommendations. 840 people responded with over 1,000 recommendations and ideas how to improve the game. So one of those recommendations was representation at all levels of the game, including the board of directors. So what we did in our mandate was we drafted a provision that allows us to make recommendations in real time. I mean, recommendations where the board would vote while the task force was still working, as opposed to a set of recommendations at the end of the task force work that they can accept or deny however they
Like work on in the
chose.
summer or something
Exactly.
like that. I see what you're saying.
Exactly. So we wanted answers from the board of directors as we were doing the work. So one of those recommendations in real time was the establishment of a permanent seat on the board of directors to address equity, diversity, and inclusion in the game. And at first I was frustrated. I didn't think that recommendation would pass, but it passed unanimously to my surprise, and a seat was immediately created on the board of directors, which I then occupied. And from that point forward, I had confidence that the board of directors was heading in the right direction, wanting to build equity, diversity, and inclusion into the game and fairness.
Well, yeah, it must be one of the most rewarding jobs there is. Because I played a high level of hockey. I know what it's like. I know the elitism we're talking about, and I'd never really got to witness the other end of it. But you hear stories, and I'm not going to sit here and make lies. Like, there was a part of me that turned my head and just kind of focused on what I was doing. But as we get older and you learn about other people and you start to care about other organizations and things like you're dealing with, it's great to know that there's people out there caring about the other side. Because I wasn't one of those growing up.
And just to add to that, Justin, and I appreciate your candor in that, because for one thing, I know that the majority of people in hockey are great people. There's no doubt about it, right? I also know that there's not one single individual of color playing this game today that I know, that I've had conversations with, and there are dozens and dozens and dozens, that hasn't experienced multiple incidents of racism that shook them to their core. Okay, so that's a fact, right? Every single person of color I know has endured this at all levels of the game, right up through junior hockey, right? Have endured this. So those are a couple of the facts that we're dealing with. But I'm also not naive to think that this is going to be rectified or corrected in a week, a month, or a year. The culture in the game developed over decades and decades and decades, and it's going to take time to dismantle, right? So we are trying to be strategic and methodical about how we go about it. Therefore, we build some programming, right, to introduce this game to those individuals who have been traditionally underrepresented in the game. We also build that next step where they can be sustained in minor hockey and then excel in the game, as well as building diversity into boards of directors, building diversity into ownership, building diversity into officiating, all levels, right? It takes all levels, because there's nothing worse we could do to an individual in many cases than put one person of color in a single dressing room, right? It's not supported. So the greater numbers that we can build into the game, the more support is naturally there, and the more success can be built from that. So those are some of the small steps we're taking, but we're not naive to think it's going to change in a day.
Yeah.